another cloud, God likes clouds, and says, "This is my beloved. This is my chosen one. And with him, I am well pleased." So, I'm going to ask you something. If a cloud starts talking to you, I have to say I'm going to follow suit with the disciples and drop to the ground and cry and be terrified. Now, the next words Jesus say to them is, "Do not be afraid." He tells his disciples, he lifts them up and says, "Do not be afraid. Do not be scared. Do not worry about what is in this cloud, because it is God. It is God speaking to us in this moment." This church holiday, the Transfiguration Sunday, is like Trinity Sunday. It's kind of obscure. It comes around. We don't often talk about it because, I'm going to be honest with you, as I stand up here and say the word transfiguration, I have 3 years of seminary under my belt, and I'm still not sure how to explain that moment in biblical storytelling. I'm not really sure how to say it. It says that he was changed. He looked different. His clothes were dazzling. His face was bright. Moses and Elijah appear in the heavens around him. It is a wild story. It's a powerful story about how a moment of faith changes us. So we celebrate this somewhat obscure church holiday, and I think it leads us to realize that our faith is about transfiguration. We are transfigurationists. We are transformational believers. We don't have interactions with the divine and stay the same. It's not possible. I don't believe it's possible to stay exactly the same when we interact with God. When we come face to face with the divine, or we recognize the divine in one another, we are not the same for them. We become different. We are changed. And the people around us look and go, they're different. So our text today is about Moses and his trip up to Mount Sinai. It's a story that is awesome and awe-inspiring, but we need to put it in the context of the rest of Exodus, of the Exodus story. So up to this point, the Israelites have been released from slavery by the Egyptians. They've seen some pretty amazing things. They've seen 10 plagues enacted upon the Egyptians. They've had God pass them by when the firstborn are killed. They have watched the waters of the Red Sea part and then swallow the Egyptian army back up. And then they wandered aimlessly for a while and complained and whined, "Hungry, I'm thirsty." You know, like the little kids in the back of the car, you've literally been gone for 4 minutes from the house. "I gotta go to the bathroom. I'm hungry. Are we there yet?" I don't give the Israelites a lot of slack here, because I just picture them as little kids on a car trip. Whining, complaining, and Moses is out in front going, "Listen, we'll get there when we get there." So they're out there walking, and then they whine enough where God realizes that they need something, and then the birds flock down, and there is manna from heaven, and they are fed. And then God commands Moses, and they get these small glimpses of the divine in their life. God tells Moses to speak to the rock in the desert, and there will be water. And he smacks it with his staff, and there is water. They get these moments, but overall, what the majority of Exodus is about are rules and regulations of how to live. So they're in the desert, wandering along, and all of a sudden they're told, "This is how you build the tabernacle." That's useful. We're in the desert. It's nothing but sand and hot. This is how you interact with one another. Great. When we finally settle down, we'll have some rules to interact with one another. Over and over. It becomes mundane. It becomes ordinary. It's simply just the guidelines of how we treat one another, how we treat the stranger, how we take care of our neighbors. But then God calls out to Moses and says, "Come up the mountain. Come up the mountain. I have something for you that is for them." So Moses takes Joshua, and they start their trek and journey up Mount Sinai. He leaves behind Aaron and Hur, the two of his other leaders, and they will take care Now, they get about halfway up. It says they climbed the mountain like 4 times in that text, if you catch that. They went up the mountain, and then they went up the mountain, and then the cloud appeared, and then Moses went up the mountain. So I take it as they are slowly making their way up the mountain, different pieces of it. So he leaves Joshua behind, and this cloud descends upon Mount Sinai, and then Moses goes into it. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, this isn't just any cloud. This is one of those East Iowa wall clouds, those, you see them coming over the plains, and they're curled up, and you're going, that's not good. You know what, they're kind of green, and you know what that brings. It's terrifying. Lightning just shooting across it. God pulls out all the stops on this cloud. It says, the cloud was like a fiery pillar. So on the top of Mount Sinai, there is a smokestack, basically, just shooting up fire. And I'm sure if you're an Israelite or I'm an Israelite, you're looking up going, don't go into that, Moses. That's a bad idea. So Moses goes into this cloud, this fiery pillar. Can you think of anything more unknown, more extraordinary? You have come out of wandering in the desert repeatedly, and then you get to the mount, and there is a fiery pillar on top of it that your leader is going to willfully march into? Or if you're Moses, you have been leading this group of people, doing everything you can to keep them alive, giving them the best ways to deal with one another, and you're called out to do something extraordinary out of the very ordinary. It is those extraordinary moments, those divine encounters, right in the midst of the ordinary. Exodus is an ordinary, somewhat boring book about rules and regulations, and then there's a fiery pillar on top of Mount Sinai in which Moses steps into. And he stays there for 40 days and 40 nights. 40 consecutive days and 40 consecutive nights communing with God in this fiery pillar, this cloud. Now our text doesn't say it, but I'm going to tell you what happens next just because I feel it's important for my sermon. Moses comes down from that after 40 days. And his face is so radiant that he has to cover it with a veil. So that the people who are down there, the Israelites, they are not downtrodden. They are not, because he has the face of the divine, because he has encountered and interacted with the divine himself. He has spent so much time with God that he is not just different internally, but he is literally, physically different. He is transfigured. He has done so much good work with God that he is changed into someone completely different. See, brothers and sisters, God's calling us to Mount Sinai. And I'm not saying that we got to take a holy journey to Israel, but if you want to, I would love to go with you. That sounds amazing. And we'll go up Mount Sinai itself. But God's calling us to Mount Sinai's moments in our life where we interact with the divine in ways that we can't explain. And they are all around us. Those moments are all around us. Those mountains cascade up out of the valleys of the mundane. See, we easily get wrapped up in that, the mundane and the ordinary. We live by the ever-beckoning will of that calendar. Those appointments we have to keep, those dates we have to do, those things. And we have those checklists. And this is coming from a person who doesn't keep checklists. But we get wrapped up in those things. We get so wrapped up in those things, checking off the next thing that we have to do today, that we miss small, miraculous moments right in front of us. Small, powerful Mount Sinai, moments to interact, to be changed by the divine right in front of us, because we just keep rolling forward with the schedule. Now, I know we have to because we have to make money, we have to have a living, we have to be able to pay for the house. But when our lives simply become become about the checklist or the guidebook or the rule book, what do we miss? When we become like the Israelites wandering in the desert going, I just am hungry now, let's eat. I am thirsty. And we just become step forward, 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot, versus eyes wide open, looking, aware for what God is doing, aware of the magnificent in the mundane, aware of the beautiful right in front of us. It's in the midst of our relentless routines that light surprises us. And yet we find ourselves by parables of the transforming glory of God, an elusive glory that cannot be programmed or administered. We can't force the glory of God. We can't schedule the glory of God. Because all of a sudden you're walking along and there it is, right there in front of you. I don't know if they were marching intentionally towards Mount Sinai. I see that mountain out there and that's where we're headed. Or they were just walking along and all of a sudden God said, boom, fiery pillar, cloud, you're going up that mountain, Moses. God doesn't care about your schedule. God wants to interrupt your schedule. God wants to interrupt all of us because God is that way. God's an interrupting God. And He steps in and He gives us a miracle right in the midst of the simplicity of life. If we're aware of it, if we're willing to be aware of it, if we're eyes open looking for it, if we're conscious enough to see it. See, so much of our faith is about becoming conscious to what God is doing. It's finding a way to be spiritually in tune to how God is working even in the simplest of things. God is working to change our mundane into miraculous, but we have to live with clouded vision. We have to be willing to step into the cloud, which is the unknown. You know, when Moses is climbing up that mountain and he sees this cloud, and you know, like I keep saying, a fiery cloud, he has no clue what's inside there. He has no idea what he is stepping into, what he dares to take part in by going into that cloud. I said it, I'm looking at a fiery cloud and I'm going, no way. It's just like Moses encountering the burning bush. He says, I'm going to stop and check it out. I'm thinking, that bush is on fire and it's not being consumed. That's crazy. I don't know what to do with that. But the willingness to step into the unknown, the unexplainable, the incomprehensible. See, it's counterintuitive for us as people to have a biblical clouded vision, to be part of the mystery of God. We need to explain everything. We like to rationalize everything. We have to have an answer for everything. Well, why is it that way? Okay, well, it's because X, Y, and Z happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And this is coming from a person who was pre-med. I love the human body, so I was able to learn about how everything happened for a reason inside that body. And when everything happens together, it's incredible. But we're not comfortable with the unknown. We're not comfortable with the extraordinary because it's strange. You know, that person who says, God spoke to me, we say, oh yeah? You're crazy. I mean, really. If someone came to us today and said, God is telling me, literally just speaking to me, we're going, oh yeah, that's great. I'm going to call the mental health services. Because it's not rational. It's unknown, it's mysterious, and we want to explain that away. But God's saying, when it comes to the transfiguration, when it comes to the story of Moses, I need you to step out in faith into the unknown. There's a great scene in Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade, one of my favorite movies. Indiana goes through 2 trials, and the last one is the leap of faith. And he comes to this canyon, and there is nothing. And it's a huge canyon, and he has to get across it somehow, and he says it's a leap of faith. It's the unknown. And he sets his foot out there, and he falls, and there is actually a path. God's calling us to take drastic leaps into the unknown. God's calling us to step out of the ordinary and into the extraordinary. God's calling us to new experiences, to meet new people, to new rules, new strategies over the same old, calling us to new levels of excitement. God is calling us to mountaintop experiences, literally those big pinnacle experiences from time to time. We have to keep those going, but what God is really calling us to is to the little Sinais, the everyday moments of the extraordinary. And this is terrifying, because new people are scary because we don't know what they're going to say, do, how they're going to act. Are they going to embarrass me? Are they going to harm me? Because we have an internal monologue of, I don't know them, so should I trust them? New places are scary because we don't really know the place. So Bethany and I went to Boston one time, and I picked a really terrible hotel. It was not where it was supposed to be, and so we had to take the underground, the subway, and then 3 buses, and finally we were there. So we took the wrong subway, and we ended up in the big park in downtown Boston with our luggage, pulling it across at like 10 o'clock at night, and I'm like, we're lost. And she's like, no, we just don't know where we are. We're lost. And she's like, no, we just don't know where we are. It's an incredible moment to say that I'm going to step into the mystery of whatever this is. We will find our way with trust and hope. That's what God's calling us into. Because those new places, yes, they're scary, but they are powerful. New ways of doing things are terrifying because we don't know if they're going to work. We have no clue if this decision to do this new thing this way is going to be fruitful. But it's about trying it. It's about stepping into it. But I'm gonna push us and say, I don't know if those things are terrifying in themselves or if what's really terrifying is how we come out of it. You know, we go to a place that we've never been before. It was good or it was bad. We come back different. We go and we meet different people of different class or whatever it is, religion, race, whatever. We don't know them, but we spend time with them. We're changed for them. Just like Moses, when he comes down off of Sinai, he is not the same man that went up Mount Sinai. He's not the same man that hiked that mountain. When he comes down, he is different for it. When we are willing to step into the unknown, what's scary is how different we are from doing it. Nelson Mandela said, there is nothing like returning to a place that remains unchanged to find the ways which you have yourself been altered. That's terrifying. We go away on a trip, meet new people, and we come back to our homes and we are different for it. Brothers and sisters, the unknown is waiting for us. It's waiting for us in the face of the mundane, the ordinary. God's calling us to step into the mystery, magnificent mystery that is God, to faithfully do so, and to dare to be changed for it, to be transfigured, to be transformed. That's the call of our faith. Amen. You will notice that, again, it is a different affirmation of faith this Sunday. It's the Scots